من معنا اليوم؟ معنا عبد الله سياري، مرحبا فيك.
يا هلا مرحبا. هلا استاذ،
كيف الحال؟ يعطيك العافية.
يسلمك، الله يعافيك، يسلمك، كيف حالك؟
يعطيك العافية، الحمد لله بخير، شرفتنا أخوي.
شرفتني.
معنا صهيب، دكتور عبد الرحيم، يا هلا فيك. أهلا إسراء، كيف الحال؟
الحمد لله تمام.
يعطيكم العافية. داوود مرحبا، يعطيك العافية. معنا قاسم، سيد إبراهيم، يعطيك العافية، حياك الله. أهلا زينب، كيف الحال؟ Okay. Okay. Welcome over, everyone. Welcome back to the BIBF. I know I've seen some of these names in previous events, so welcome back. And those who join us for the first time, hi, and welcome to the world of BIBF. And hopefully we have another informative session today. So I think we're ready to go, and I think we're ready to hear a little bit about search engine optimization, or SEO as we know it. And some of you have already come across that term, and we all know how important it is in today's world to maximize the potential of traffic, of online traffic, and how, you know, putting in place the right strategy can help your business or your organization sort of thrive. It's been a hot topic, and we've got some wonderful speakers today. We have Harry and we have Josh, who both represent Studio Hawk, which is as an SEO specialist. Harry himself has been in it almost all his life. Let's say about half his life. He started off with SEOs at the age of 13, and it was in reaction to how his father actually fell victim to a dodgy digital marketing agency who promised the world but delivered very little. Since then, Harry started undertaking the work himself, and quickly fell in love with the logic and creativity that SEO brings. This started to rank his father's business and several other websites he owned, which landed him his first job in the working world at only the tender age of 14. He's 24 now, Harry. Harry, you're 24 or 25, aren't you?
24, yeah.
Well, 24, and he's not done yet. Today we're going to host him as well as Josh to tell us about how it works and what SEO means and what things we need to consider. So Josh is going to be joining Harry as well, and he himself is an SEO specialist working for Studio Hawk, Melbourne, in Australia, of course. He's a graduate of RMIT, which is a well-known educational institution with global presence and impact on more than one front. This guy also, Josh, got drawn into digital marketing, and once he started, he could not stop. So I guess today they're going to tell us a little bit about it. So over to yourself, Harry. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks, guys. Do you want me to present? Do you want me to share my screen through as well?
Could do that.
Excellent. And then Josh, if you just want to take over that one, it's when you're up. All right.
Cool.
Let's jump into it. So yeah, today obviously we're going to be running through SEO in a post-COVID world. What some of the big brands are doing to outrank their competitors, and what you can be doing too. So I like to start off with a little bit of a game about like search intent. So search intent is how we can use data to kind of get an understanding of how many people are searching for things each month. So if we look at YouTube versus TikTok, for example, we can look at how many different people search for each of these per month. Now, TikTok, obviously very popular, but when it comes to the Google search engine, what people type into Google, it's important to understand that TikTok's more of an app and YouTube's more of a platform. So if we look at how many searches each of them get per month, YouTube comes away as a clear winner there, with a lot more people searching for YouTube. Another one for any gamers in there, Dota 2 versus League of Legends. Obviously, every time I do this one, people ask me what these games are, but you know, I'm a nerd. I have to have some nerdy jokes in there. So Dota 2, unfortunately, my favorite game, is not searched as much as League of Legends. And of course, nearest and dearest to my heart is SEO versus PPC. So SEO organic, PPC obviously on the paid side. We can see there's a lot more people that want to learn about SEO. And so these are the kind of figures we can look at and understand using data who's searching for what. So without further ado, my name is Harry Sanders. I'm the founder of Studio Hawk. So we've got a lot of kind of credentials there. I sit on the board of the Australian Web Industry Association. We've been named Semrush's Agency of the Year. We're the largest dedicated SEO agency in Australia. I'm actually in our London office now. And most recently, at the equivalent of like the Grammys for SEO, we won the Global Search Award for the best large SEO company, which is a huge achievement for us to, you know, for an agency out of Australia, where predominantly the UK guys and the US guys would win this award, to take home that has been awesome for us. So I know a little bit of things about SEO, and hopefully I can kind of reveal those secrets to you. So what are the stats? 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine. 75% of those people never go past the first page of search results. So we always say in the SEO world, the best place to hide a dead body is on the second page of Google. So don't go looking. And also 50% of these search queries are 4 words or longer. So when we talk about that, that means like a lot of people, instead of searching, you know, maybe supermarket, they might be searching for best supermarket for organic products. And that's what we call a long tail term. And 50% of all searches are 4 words or longer. So there's a lot to consider there. And importantly, we need to know, where is SEO going? We've just come out of this crazy time. What's going to happen? Now, if you look at companies worth over over $5 million, we're looking at, they have about 1 to 3 people in their digital marketing team. That's up 23% already from pre-COVID. So a huge amount of companies are starting to put people in their digital marketing team, even relatively small companies. These same companies, 77% of them have an SEO strategy, but 48% of them, almost half of them, describe it as average or less. Now that's obviously a crazy figure when you think about, you know, 77% of these people are doing it, and almost 50% of them are not happy with it. That means that there's a lot of work to be done in the SEO world. When we look at the kind of goals that people want to achieve through content marketing or SEO, it's pretty straightforward. People want to generate more quality leads, want to attract more traffic to their website, they want to, you know, improve brand reputation, and all those different things. And if we look at the most efficient content marketing tactics implemented by their team, at the very top of the list there is yours truly, search engine optimization. And even the next 2 after that, or the next 3 really, updating or repurposing existing content as a form of SEO, creating more video or visual content as a form of SEO, and publishing more how-to guides and editorial content is a part of SEO. So if we look at this, the most, and this is a survey done with 1,000 different companies all around the world, the most effective channel that they put in place was search engine optimization. So I'm hoping to kind of unpack that a little bit and show you guys exactly what they're doing. So you can see that kind of flow there. Organic traffic and leads is what people are looking for. So we're in this weird kind of generation where consumers are very much driving the conversation. They want to make educated choices without intrusive ads. Now we can see this movement happening in front of our eyes with all the iOS updates and how they're very much changing and restricting who we can serve ads to. And that's because users do not interact with those ads as much. If we look at kind of people clicking or searching on Google, you might see those ads come up. Only about 15% of people click those ads. The rest of them skip right past them. So we want to own that organic channel. So anything that's not an ad when you search something in Google is what we want to capture and own. So again, coming through last kind of figures of stats here, most of the traffic sources, if you get an e-commerce website, most of that should be coming through organic search. About 67% is the average figure. And if it's a blog, about 69%, 68.99% is coming through search. So if you're sitting there wanting to gauge of what other people in your industry are doing, this is what that kind of looks like. So hopefully by now kind of drummed into you, all right, this SEO thing's pretty important. More and more brands are getting on top of it. And I want to say it's still very much early days for SEO. I talk to a lot of like investment bankers, VC firms, and they're really gearing up about this SEO. Even though it's been around for a long time, it's really starting to have its heyday. So what can you do? Now, people look at SEO and they think it's this crazy complex, very complicated system. In actual fact, it's very simple. There's three main pillars to SEO that you need to know and understand. So there's technical. So the technical side is where we optimize a website for crawlability, ranging from fixing broken links on a website to something like mapping out how the website structure looks and how it works so that users can do it or go through the website easily. Content, making sure that we've got content that's being read by Google to determine relevance, making sure we have text on our website that reflects the services or products that we're offering. And then lastly, authority. So backlinks are how Google basically builds their index. So that's references from other websites to your reference, which help you endorse your website and build that credibility. So we've really got to get other people to link to us. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But that's really all you need to know in terms of the Google algorithm. If you're not ranking or you want more traffic, it is always, without fail, one of these three pillars, which is the reason that's holding you back. So to kind of simplify things and I guess make things a little bit more fun, we use an acronym called Playing Dirty in the SEO world. Now, Dirty is a framework that looks like this. You might look at that and go, well, that's incredibly complicated, Harry. What the hell? But we're going to kind of run through this framework with you and hopefully simplify it a little bit so that you can understand exactly what goes on into SEO. These are all the different things that you might need to know. We'll run through one by one, in an understandable framework. It should kind of be like doing a pit stop, right? You come in, you get the developers to do some of the infrastructure stuff, you can work on the relevance stuff, and you just get people to deal with different things to make sure that your website's finely tuned like a pit stop. So the first one there is delivery, right? So, Josh, did you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. Loving everything I'm hearing so far. So yeah, as Harry touched on, as part of, well, the first part of Dirty SEO is delivery. So it really revolves around speed and performance of a website. So example would be page speed. Then it goes into security. So security of your website, is your website safe, etc. And then we've got mobile as well, so user experience and responsiveness. So going into page speed, it's really it really is what it's called. It's just about how fast a specific web page is loading on your website. And as I said here, it's not about how fast or fast enough. It has to be faster. So the faster the better, especially for users on mobile devices or iPads or tablets. They are connecting to Wi-Fi. Not everyone's using ultra-fast internet on a desktop, so page speed is super essential. Going to the next slide, Harry. And we've got a stat here that 53% of visits are abandoned if a mobile site takes longer than 3 seconds to load. And we all know how that feels. You know, the amount of times that I've, been using my phone or I'm out and about and I go to load something and it's just taking ages. And I'll exit whatever I'm loading on my browser because it's just taking too long, or even, using Facebook or Instagram or whatever. If it's taking too long on that pull down swipe, then I'm probably going to, leave the app after a period of time. So what we always see is you always want to be below 3 seconds. 3 seconds is definitely that, you don't really want to be past 3 seconds. But there's so many sites that we see today, even sites, on an enterprise, large sort of enterprise level, their pages can take upwards of 5, 10, 15 seconds to load, especially if there's a load of technical issues. Going into the next slide, so you can see here what it looks like when sites really look at this page speed and address performance issues. This is not just page speed. This would be a whole list of performance issues in one being addressed. But what we always see, like especially with page speed, we usually see like a 20% increase, 20 to 30% increase, and that can just come from switching servers or hosts as well. A lot of websites are running cheap web frames and cheap hosts, and just switching that over to a more premium platform can really help. And leading into the next slide, we're just looking at more of a backlink side here, and how that can really reflect performance. And then with page speed, obviously you're looking at mobile and desktop. It's really good to optimize both. Generally, desktop's going to be quite high. We see a lot of websites sitting at around 60 or 70 score for desktop, but their mobile can sit anywhere from 0 to 10, because the way a mobile interface works is totally different to desktop. And a lot of times, website owners or whoever's managing the website has only really optimized or reviewed their desktop version, and they've completely forgotten about their mobile. So we always, optimize for mobile first, and always recommend for all developers to build websites from mobile first as well, desktop second. Now we're going to lead into infrastructure and what that looks like on a website and how that works on a foundation level. Harry, I'm going to pass it back to you. You might be muted, Harry.
So just to recap, that delivery is all about how can we serve that website fast and how can we best serve it to users. So the faster we can make that website load, the better off we're going to be. So you can go to some free tools, might be Google PageSpeed, where you can run one of those audits, and it will give you some kind of information as to how fast or how slow your website actually is. So in this one, we're going to be talking about infrastructure. Now, infrastructure, we use this word called crawlability, and that is basically what Google does when they go through and look at your site. They crawl your website. That's why sometimes if you ever heard the expression, Google's a spider, it's called a spider because they crawl your website, essentially. And what they do with that is they look at the amount of pages on your website and how frequently that's crawled. You can see this data in your Google Search Console if you have that set up. So you can see a high, a low, and an average amount of times. Now, what we're trying to do is make sure that Google can crawl that website as best as possible. Because if Google can't crawl the website, they're not going to show it in the Google search results. So when we look at crawlability, we're really looking at you know, how we've laid out everything. We can see our kind of reviews at the top, our top models, our news, advice. We can see some of these clickable links here. It's all going to be laid out in a format that's really, really easy for Google to see and to understand. Another one that we've done that for is B2C furniture, where you can see how this is all laid out from an e-commerce perspective. This one's more of a blog. You can see how this is laid out from a general perspective and how much of an increase that's had. Now, this brand, Which Car, has sitting about 2 million organic visits a month. Before we worked on this kind of crawlability infrastructure. Now it's sitting at about 4 million per month, just going through some of this crawlability stuff. B2C, we're previously doing, I don't know, Josh, probably 11 million in revenue a year. Now they're probably doing about 20, 22 million in revenue a year, just through going through simple kind of structuring things on the website to make it more crawlable for Google. Another really cool thing that you can do with infrastructure, you ever Googled something that's got these star ratings, that's got this description here, you can do what we call implementing schema and open graph tags to kind of let Google understand and see what you want shown in those search results. So this is a title, this is a description. There's little bits of code you can add to pages. Now, pages with these kind of star ratings on, you know, even an e-commerce website usually lead to about a 30 to 40% higher click-through rate, which means even though you might not be in the top position, if you're number 2, people are more likely to click your link purely because they have this star rating there. So it's certainly worth looking at or making a note for yourself of how you could use schema or open graph tags to enrich your what we call search engine results page. So you can kind of see what that looks like there. You've got your standard results, your rich snippets, and your rich cards, the different kind of examples of this on a mobile. Josh, do you want to talk to us about relevance a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. Yeah, awesome. Now we're going to go into relevance. So there's 4 areas that this covers. It's internal architecture, similar kind of to what Harry was just covering there on infrastructure, but more about the internal architecture of a website. We got linkage, you know, which is backlinks, internal, outbound links coming towards the site, whether it's internally or externally. Content on the site, quality of content, readability, meta tags. So real that classic kind of on-page SEO 101 kind of stuff that honestly that a lot of people can do if they you know do a little bit of research and you know even what we're talking about here, you can really apply a lot of this to a website. And then we've got multimedia as well, so image optimization, video optimization, whether a site's using PDFs or PowerPoints, etc. So let's just kick into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is really site structure and linkage. So we're looking at maximizing your internal linking structure. So all internal links are just links on a web page that are pointing towards another web page within your website. I recently did this added quite a lot of internal links throughout a client site. They're the largest sort of shipping container company in Australia, and they're running a site with just 0 internal links. And one of the main strategies that we implemented was putting in quite a thoughtful and in-depth internal linking structure where we're linking to various really important pages on the website and making sure that all pages on the website can be found within 1 to 2 clicks. And it was definitely one of the most pivotal reasons why they just, you know, exploded in search. I think that year on year, they're at around a 400% increase. So internal links are super important. And then when we're talking about content in hand with relevance, we always want to match. The first thing we want to do is match content to the user intent. So if you find a keyword that you want to go after, maybe you've got your own website and you see a keyword and you go, man, I'd love to be number 1 for that keyword. You're really first going to understand the search intent or the reason behind the search. because then that's going to it's going to inform you what kind of page to create. So we can see here how tall is the Empire State Building. People are, but I'm pointing out the obvious, people are just really wanting to understand the height of the building from that keyword. So that's really what the search intent's telling us there. It's very, very informational. And then when we lead into the next slide, we're going to talk about various sort of search intents. So there's four types of search intent. So we've got transactional, which is when users are searching for something they're looking to buy. So that's a keyword could be, when someone's looking for a new TV or washing machine. When they search for, a 4K TV, they're really looking to buy something. And when we've got commercial search intent, so when they're comparing products, so they might be looking for best 4K TVs. So actually comparing different 4K TVs to buy. It's kind of a mix of transactional and then informational. How to save iPhone battery is very informational. They're looking to just how to basically save their iPhone battery. So you can see here, there's all different blog posts on how to improve or save your iPhone battery. So we can see here that if we want to rank for this keyword, maybe we're a big blog that talks about iPhones, or a review website that talks about iPhones. The search intent here is either video content or blogs that talks about how to improve battery life. So you can even make a video here. You actually don't have to write a blog. You can make a really high quality video that you get featured in that carousel. Now, when optimizing, when you've sort of worked out what the user intent is and understand what users are wanting to see on the first page, then we're going to go into more of the content optimization. So one tool, there's so many tools you can use, whether it's Ahrefs, if anyone's heard of that. There's countless on-page content optimization tools. We've just put an example on the next slide that talks that shows Semrush. Semrush is just a great tool. There's many others where you can plug in a keyword, and it's going to tell you, how to save iPhone battery. It's going to tell you all the semantically related keywords to include in your content, potentially what backlinks to acquire, what websites to reach out to link back to your new blog. The recommended text length down the bottom here as well, super important. Google prefers long form content. If you're writing about how to save iPhone battery, you definitely don't want to write 200 words because everyone else on the first page has written at least 1,000, 1,500 to 2,000 words. So the recommended text length there, a minimum of 1,100. And you can always, if you haven't got, if you've already created, say if you've already created a lot of blog content or even just a lot of content on your site that you want to re-optimize, a great way to do that is using what's called Google Search Console. It's a free tool by Google. If you've got a website, definitely get it set up. If you haven't got it set up, Harry, if you want to jump into the next slide. And what you can do is you can basically grab a URL off your site and then plug it straight into Google Search Console. And that's going to tell you all the the queries are just blacked out here, but it's going to tell you all the queries that are leading to that specific page, all the clicks you're getting and the impressions. So you may have some of these queries may not even be on your post, on your blog or on your web page. So this is a great way to pull all those keywords out of Google Search Console, re-optimize your content by literally injecting in all those keywords that people are searching for, which in turn is going to just, it's going to help you rank for those keywords that people are actually searching for. And then even just, as just previously touched on, optimizing for click-through rate as well. So you can even add in that third column next to clicks and impressions and work out the actual click-through rate for each specific keyword. So if the click-through rate's quite high, then you're doing really well. But if you're sitting there, there's an example there at around 0.4%, that click-through rate's quite low. That's a really good opportunity. We're getting a lot of impressions, but the clicks are just quite low. And all impressions is the amount of times a URL is being seen in search, and the clicks are just obviously the amount of clicks. Content length, super important, as I touched on. One of that example gave us at least 1,100 words. But if we jump to the next slide, it just touches on content length, creating more in-text length, as I touched on before. And yeah, so pretty straightforward. At least 1,100 words. So we go to the next slide again. Backlinks are hand in hand with relevancy. So all backlinks are just websites linking from websites linking to you. So they're generally, we look at internal links as an internal network, and an external links, it's more about being part of a community of websites. So the more websites that are linking back to you, the more authoritative and relevant you're going to be, especially if you're getting, if you're a website within, the education space, and you've got a lot of backlinks coming from other websites within the education space, whether it's government educational websites or big blogs talking about different educational topics, then that's going to really help. And backlinks are just a vote of confidence from one website to another. So we can see here that big businesses rarely need to acquire links. So the bigger the business, if you're a massive business, you're naturally or organically going to acquire a lot of links linking back to you. Where if you're a small to medium-sized business or brand, this becomes a lot more important to start doing your outreach. We jump to the next slide. We're looking at content still, industry blogs, top performing articles. So the top performing, if you're looking at writing a post, you can always start with looking at writing a list, whether it's, top 10s, top 10 list, whether it's, if we go back to that 4K TVs, top 10 best, 4K TVs, or top 10 4K TVs you want to look out for, questions, how-tos, going back to that example we touched on, how to save iPhone battery. And then we've got guides. Ultimate guides are great for really expanding on a specific topic. So, the ultimate guide to, the iPhone, the latest iPhone, whether it's the iPhone 13 or whatever ultimate guide. So if you're a lawyer, an accountant, you definitely want to be writing these ultimate guides that really covers, what is being an accountant. But yeah, just to touch on, if you're really kind of looking at what do I even write, what do I format, lists are great to start off with. There's so many lists rank on the first page, and then jumping to the next slide on content, we're going to talk about reading time and distribution. So the average time taken to read text is around 3 to 4 minutes. So we can see here on the first page, the average length is around 3 to 4 minutes. So it's the average time readers take to read text. So they're only going to be in there for 3 to 4 minutes to read your content. Not many of them are going to spend over 10 minutes. So you need to be cautious of that too when you're writing content. 1 to 2 is quite high, so users want to be quite. So really, this shows that you want to have really engaging content to begin with at the top of the web page, so users stay super engaged. So just to recap on content, you've got some really cool tools you can use, whether it's Google Search Console, Semrush, Ahrefs, great third-party tools. You want long-form content, very important. You want to make sure your posts and pages are matching the user intent or the search intent. If you want to re-optimize content, use Google Search Console. Search Console is a very powerful tool to just review how the URL is performing. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Harry, to talk about trust.
Thanks, Josh, and good stuff. Relevance is a hugely important part of SEO, and that kind of content play. I mean, we too often we see people creating content without actually making any data-driven decisions. So if you take anything out of this webinar, understand that there's a lot of meaningful data-driven decisions that you can make by utilizing free tools. So moving on to the last pillar of the Dirty SEO framework, we're talking about trust. Now, obviously, you can trust me, but Google wants to make sure that it can trust you too. Google does not want to be sending users to a website that it doesn't think it can trust, or worse, has nefarious intents for its users, because that reflects poorly on Google. So what happens here is most of the people that are Google searching are clicking on the top 3 results, right? And then what happens is we have a drastic increase in what we call a bounce rate. Now, a bounce rate is when someone lands on your website and immediately kind of goes elsewhere. So in the first 3 results, right, that's actually pretty low. We start off at about a 48%, very similar kind of on all those 48% chance that they bounce to another website on the top 3. It's actually lowest on the 3rd result. That's most likely to, they've kind of gone through the first 2 at that point and they land on the 3rd and they're like, look, this is just going to have to do. But then you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and it just increases all up. That's the first page of Google. After that, it takes a bit of a dip. I mean, by the time you get to the 2nd page of Google, you're basically like, man, I have to click on something now. I'm never going to find it. And then it just leapfrogs back up again as people struggle to find what they do. So the reason for that is content's less relevant, maybe site loads slower, and there is more trust towards the domains in the first decision. So if you look at that as like a conversion intent, these top 3 positions actually have twice the likelihood of converting a keyword compared to those other ones, those other terms, just simply because people trust them, that Google's put them in the right place. And if we look at that scroll percentage as well, we can see on the home page, most people are only going to scroll to the top 25%. Then some will scroll to the category, and very few will actually scroll the detail portion of that page, right? People do not scroll very far on a page at all. So we really want to make sure that users know exactly where they are when they land on a website. So there's a lot to kind of go through in terms of that trust, but it really is even just as simple as putting your award on an about page or going through and making sure that everything makes sense and is in a clearly laid out fashion. They're the different things we want to look for when it comes to a user experience. Anything like intrusive pop-ups, anything on your website that you look at and go, this isn't conducive to a good user experience, then they're the things you want to go through, address, and fix. Otherwise, you end up with an experience that really is good for nobody. Users will hate it, Google will hate it, and therefore you're not going to get any rankings. So super, super, super important to be able to find those things, focus on those things, and address them in order to get better positions and better results. Because remember, those top 3 positions are going to convert the most. So anything that you can do to make users trust you, again, whether that's awards, whether that's credentials that you've been in, they're all things that will help Google trust you. Now, of course, the last part of trust is this idea of backlinks, other websites referring to you. It's a little out of scope today just because it's a whole presentation in itself, but we're going to give you some materials at the end of this webinar that'll include heaps more information about how you can acquire these backlinks and a bunch of free resources that you can go to in order to do that. So stay tuned for that. But Josh, can you run us through how you would do a technical audit? Because there's actually a way, isn't there, of looking at all these different items that we've covered up in this dirty framework, and it'll only take people about 10 minutes to go through and actually audit this. So do you want to run us through, Josh, how someone could do a technical audit at home themselves?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. And with what you just touched on, trust is just becoming so important now. So what you can do when you're doing to do a technical audit on your site, the first thing you can do is, you can actually, a lot of free tools now come with, free trials, 7-day trials, 14-day trials. The example we've used here is Semrush that comes with, from memory, either a 7-day or 14-day free trial. So if you wanted to do your first initial tech audit or technical audit on your website, you can kind of get away with doing the first one for free. So what you want to do is, using this example, creating a Semrush account, plugging your website in or a client's website into the site audit tool, hit go to start running your audit. We've worked with sites before where they'll come in and the total score will be 30%, even 25, 20%. They'll have thousands and thousands of issues. And we worked with one of the largest enterprise retailers, electronic and consumer good retailers in the country. And when they started with us, their total score was at around 30%, and now they sit at around 98%. And the amount of errors they had was just insane. The site was around 100,000, 150,000 pages, and they were looking at hundreds of thousands of errors. And the benefit that we saw from that was significant. So once you've kind of hit go on your site audit, it's going to spit out, Semrush, this tool we got here, is going to spit out all the different errors that exist on your site. And it's also going to tell you where these errors exist on the site, what they mean, and also a potential solution. So these kind of tools are very informative. We can see here this site's got up almost 7,000 broken internal links, which are terrible for the user experience. So, that's a lot of links. So there's a lot of times when users are navigating through this site and they're reaching a 404 page or a broken link. And there's nothing more annoying than when you're on a website and you're engaging with the content and you just keep hitting broken links or even one broken link these days, especially for a young generation. They want everything loading instantly and everything flowing, and one thing can kind of throw things in the mix. And as Harry touched on before with trust, loads of broken links can kind of decrease the trust of the website, especially for a Coinbase, a financial site. If I was kind of using that site and it's financial and there's loads of broken links, I'm going to be a bit concerned that, who owns this site? Who's managing this? So we can see here, 2,500 duplicate meta descriptions, 1,000 duplicate title tags, 1,000 duplicate content issues. So this site has got a lot of issues. They definitely need someone in SEO to come in there and really clean that up. So once we've done the audit, we list out everything. Spreadsheets are great here. Spreadsheet everything up. If you need, developer support, etc. It's super important. And jumping into the next slide, Harry, you can even view your scores around what some of the stuff that Harry was touching on earlier, whether it's crawlability, whether your site's secure HTTPS. So crawlability is sitting around 68% for this site, so it definitely could be improved. There's around 30% of the sites got some crawling issues, which is something that, as an SEO, you'd want to address straight away. If a site's got crawling issues, and really all that means is bots, search engine bots are having trouble crawling a web page. If they've got issues crawling a web page, then how are they meant to know what that page is about? If they don't know what it's about, they're not going to understand the content. If they don't understand the content, the page isn't going to rank well. So crawlability is always the first point of call. HTTPS is just about security. So you can see there around 6% of pages potentially running an HTTP version. Performance 75 and internal links at 43%. So there's definitely some opportunities there. Then you can even do an analyze each of the reports. So this is just more into a bit of a deep dive. So we're looking at crawlability here. So page crawl depth. So we can see here only 1% of pages are one click away, and 58% of 3 clicks and 28% of 4+ clicks. So if there's some really important pages that are 4+ clicks away, that's going to take a while for a user to find those pages. And it's also going to take a while for bots to find those pages. So you may not even know, but the site you're working with could, some of the most important pages could be 4, 5, 6, 7 clicks away. So they're going to be lost within the site, and they might not even be crawled that frequently at all. They could be crawled once every month or 2 months if you're lucky. So there's a lot of, again, opportunity here, and this is something that you can review when working with websites. So to go into even more a bit of a deep dive, you can review the site on step 5. You can review each URL, which is really you want to start with your key pages on your site. Don't worry about, there may be some, random pages or older pages that don't have a lot of value. You definitely want to start with high value pages. So pages like the home page, service pages, if you're selling products, product pages or collection pages, they're the URLs that you want to start with. So Semrush here can show you a list of individual URLs and actually the amount of issues attached to them. When clicking into a page, we're looking at the home page here, it's going to list out the exact issues that are affecting this home page. So these are the issues that you can start with to really increase that website health. So whether it's doing a unique meta description, this page seems to have the same meta description as so many other pages. So optimizing a meta description is a great way to increase click-through rate. And then we've got a bunch of warnings here that this site really needs to review, whether it's little content, title of this page is too short. There's also some blocked resources in a robots text file. And going into step 7, fixing, this is where we kind of jump into the Google Search Console tool that we touched on before. It's going to list out all the errors in the index coverage report in Search Console. So we've got 3 errors here that you can fix. There doesn't seem to be too many errors, which is great to see. But if anything's being flagged in Google Search Console, you definitely want to fix that, because that means Google is actually seeing that, or a bot is seeing that, and they're registering it in your Search Console portal. That's kind of the step-by-step way that you can audit your site. As I said, Semrush is free for the first 7 or 14 days. So definitely sign up and go from there. And I'll hand it back to you, Harry, to take us out.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so it sounds really complex, and look, there might be a lot of things that we've run through today that maybe you haven't heard the vocabulary for, or maybe it's the first time you're learning a lot of these things. So I just want to reassure you there is a lot of information outside of this webinar that you'll get as part of it, so that you'll get access to like a glossary sheet of every term we've spoken about today. You'll get access to the Dirty SEO mind map. Obviously, there's all the slides, so it's quite a bit of homework for you to do if you are so inclined and want to see those ranking boosts. Now, the reason why I think you should do that is I've got a couple sites for you. For a smaller brand, look at these guys. Like, this is when they started implementing some of these SEO things. Been working with these guys for a long, long time now, and they've just exploded. All it's been is simple incremental SEO changes. And you can see that graph just absolutely taking off and peaking in terms of their traffic. And that's not a result of any magic or crazy voodoo or, worshipping Google or anything like that. This is just a case of good SEO, right? We want to focus on the basics, focus on the things that we control, and we can see huge yields. This is another one. This is Officeworks. This company, doing over $1 billion in kind of organic sales. And they've had about a 30–40% uplift in organic sales over the past year. I can't tell you how much revenue that's brought in because we're contractually obliged, but I can imagine you can do some guesses on what 30–40% uplift would look like on that. So it's a huge amount of difference if you can get some of this sorted, and can be the potential for, just vast sums of leads or revenue or whatever it is that you're trying to attract with your website. So I promised some material before. So if you go to hawkacademy.co, you send them an email there or sign up, you'll get access to all this information here. So you'll get that technical SEO audit glossary. So you'll get a kind of a bit more of a rundown of each of the different things we spoke about today in that technical SEO audit. You get a copy of that dirty SEO map that we spoke about. You'll even get a bit of a checklist that you can go through as part of auditing your site and cleaning all these things up. hawkacademy.co is actually our training website. So it goes through, for complete beginners, everything that you need to know from beginning to end of SEO. And we actually personally walk you through each step and tailor it to your website based on the way we have this kind of roadmap or pathway. There's completely free videos you can look through there. There's a few paid ones you can also have a look at, but it's a great resource for learning more about SEO and how to do some of these things yourself. So appreciate everyone tuning in today. I'm Harry. You can reach me at harry@studiohawk.com.au, and obviously the lovely, remarkable Josh can be reached at josh@studiohawk.com.au as well. So hopefully you've been able to take something away from the different SEO principles that were unpacked here, and we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you for that session, Harry and Josh. Very enlightening. And thank you also for redirecting us to some of the free tools. I mean, you know, that's, I'm sure, something that our audience here will be really interested in. Even for our audience that did register and didn't attend, I'm sure once they see the recording and have a view of the Academy, the Hawk Academy tools, it'll be useful. We have a question here from Fatma, and either of you can address that question. Fatma asks, if Google Keywords Planner is not enough to discover keywords for an SEO PPC campaign, what software do you recommend to get started with SEO? She's looking for a one-stop solution from keywords to audit to analytics.
Probably Semrush. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, 100%. Semrush is definitely the one-stop shop for SEOs and digital marketers. You know, Semrush is definitely at that forefront of kind of, it's kind of got all the tools that you would want kind of in one, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Photoshop of the SEO industry. I mean, everyone, if you're in graphic design, everyone's using Photoshop. If you're in SEO, everyone's using Semrush. So they've got some relatively inexpensive plans as well for people that are wanting to, learn things. They're just putting so much money into evolving the tool, doing keyword research, backlink auditing, the technical auditing. There's just so much good stuff in there that I couldn't recommend it higher.
Thank you for that. Linny is asking, what are the important KPIs to be kept in mind while evaluating whether your SEO is working?
Josh?
Yeah, I can jump in. SEO is very measurable, which makes our job easier. There's so many different ways you can measure the performance of a SEO campaign. But the first thing you want to make sure is you actually, your tracking's correct. So you've got the right tracking in place. You're setting up the right conversions. We use a tool called Google Tag Manager to set up a lot of that sort of tags and triggers. Some of you probably heard of it. It's a free tool by Google. But once you've got your tracking's accurate, your conversion tracking is set up, whether it's revenues, whether it's whether you're a service-based business, phone calls, form submissions, then you can actually start tracking the performance. And the key things that we're looking at is the amount of traffic coming to a site via the organic search channel. So the amount of increase, month-on-month increases, year-on-year increases, ranking increases. It's another key performance indicator. Are you increasing in rankings for your target keywords? If you're not increasing in rankings for your target keywords, then something isn't going right. You need to review the strategy. We usually, we're always kind of reviewing our strategies at Studio Hawk. We have, we've got a really good team dynamic where we're always chatting about our campaigns and what's working and what's not working. If something isn't working after, say, 3 to 6 months, then we're going to review the strategy to make sure we're actually sort of moving in the right direction. So, as I said, the first one's traffic increases, then you've got keyword increases, then you can look at revenue, the amount of revenue coming through, whether that's increasing. If you're a service-based business, then the amount of inquiries that are increasing. Are you getting more phone calls? Another one you can look at if you want to look at more of the user experience is user behavior. Are users staying on the site for longer? Are they navigating through more pages? Are they just being more engaged with the content? That can be a great win. But at the end of the day, it's more about the bottom line. Are you getting more users to the site? Are you getting more revenue? Are you getting more leads and inquiries? As long as those 3 things are going up, then you're doing the right thing.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So Nadia wants to ask, how is SEO different post-COVID versus pre-COVID. And when I was looking over some of the new marketing and tech developments, whether it's IoT or voice search with SEO, so how is it different in today's context?
Yeah, so look, the biggest thing, there's not any real, outside of like EAT and some of the more advanced principles of SEO that are more about trust, there's nothing that's really changed so much more than the fact that there's more people doing it than ever. So if you look at some of the stats we spoke about at the start about pre-COVID versus post-COVID levels, there's more people in marketing teams, more people are realizing the value of putting out content. There's more competition in that space. So we have to be smarter about how we use data. We know that people are using online. Post-COVID, there's about 40, 50% more people online. I didn't even think that was possible, but there are. So we need to think more about how we capture those people and capture them on a more meaningful level, utilizing SEO more so than coming at it from a paid down your throat kind of tactic. So that's the biggest change I would say people need to be aware of coming out of COVID.
That's interesting. In this part of the world, a lot of people use agencies to support them on SEO. And so if organizations are recruiting an agency, what are some of the things that they need to look out for in order to just make sure that they're getting their buck's worth? Yeah, they're getting what they're paying for.
Yeah, I can jump in here. The first thing, and something that we always go on about at Studio Hawk is transparency. You want to make sure that if you're a business and you're starting to work with an SEO agency, you want to understand their reporting. How do they report on performance? You want to understand their kind of business processes. Who's the account manager you're going to get. How many hours you're going to get on the campaign, where those hours actually going, what are the key measures of success? I think that's really important that, the client, the business and the agency both agree on what are the key measures of success for them. So then the client can be happy, but also the agency knows what the client's looking for, what their expectations are. If if I was a client and I was signing up to, or starting to work with an agency, I would, first thing I would do is share everything about my business, and I would, set the expectations. I would say, hey, what's really important to me. Say if it's inquiries, if you're a service-based business, or if you're running a SaaS tool and it's all about signups or trials, I'd be saying to that agency, my number one thing is I need signups. I need free trials. I'd really kind of, really express everything that it's important to the business, because not agencies are very fast paced, and sometimes agencies aren't even aware of what the client's needs are. So that's always very important. That it's something that we do at Studio Hawk is we really understand the client's needs, what they see as wins to them, and then we just go straight after that. So two things that come to mind. I don't know if Harry wants to add to that is, transparency. Our reporting is so in depth, and we literally, spill the beans. We show the cards on everything we do. A big part of what we do is we educate all our clients on SEO. There's no, mystical, special things that goes on in the background. Everything we do is shown to the client, and we would definitely recommend anyone who's looking to work with an SEO agency to really understand what the agency is doing in the background. And make sure that you agree on the key measures of success. That's super important. But Harry, if you want to add to that, feel free.
No, I'd agree with what you're saying, Josh. It's all about transparency, and they should be able to take you on a journey where they can educate you about what they're actually doing. Too many agencies fall over on that front because they don't really know. The reason why I think Studio Hawk's successful is obviously we've got a great team of people like Josh, but we specialize in one thing. We just do SEO. We don't do paid ads. We don't do, social media. We don't do web development. And that intrinsically makes us very good at those things because we have to just focus on SEO. Whereas there's a lot of companies that do everything, and unfortunately they do a kind of shoddy job of everything more so than what they probably should be doing.
Yeah, because this does take significant time and effort, and something that's more long term. Yeah, so people have to be really committed towards those long term outcomes rather than looking for some quick wins, which is what some of the other digital marketing tools are probably able to bring to us. One final question. Qasim would like to know, how do news articles perform when compared to list questions and the how-to articles? Would news articles positively impact the campaign?
This one's quite particular because it's all about the search intent. So if there's a specific keyword that someone's going after and everything on the first page is lists, different listicles or list articles, then maybe someone may need to write a kind of list article. But if there's a specific keyword that that someone might be going after, and on the first page there's no lists, there's no how-tos, and there's just videos, and images, then you kind of need to create a video-based content or high kind of visual-based content. So it's not the type of format that necessarily is going to rank the best. We really have to understand what's ranking on the first page. But what users love to see across the board is easy to digest content. So that's where how-tos, lists come into play. So it's not just, say, if someone uses the list format, it doesn't mean that they're going to rank better than something else just because they're using that format. But it's kind of, if that kind of makes sense. Harry, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, that's one of those things that depends. You've got to do some research and see what's already ranking, like Josh said. So if you search a keyword and you see whatever's there, you want to develop that kind of content because Google's already seen that the kind of content is what it wants to show. So yeah, that'll definitely positively impact the campaign. But if you're putting out a news article when Google just wants to show listicles, then you're not really going to see any outcome from that.
That makes sense. Yeah. So to do what the customer wants and to also do what Google wants us to do. Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
And it's achieving that balance. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of this webinar. Thank you, Harry, and thank you, Josh. Very valid inputs. A lot of technical stuff there, but also a lot of good tools that you've introduced us to, as well as the benefit of, accessing learning material from the Hawk Academy opportunity. So thank you so much. And thank you to Justin coordinating things from the back end, as well as to the BIBF team, as always, doing a great job in putting out these thought leadership opportunities for our target audience. So hopefully we'll see you on the next webinar, everyone, and have a good day. Stay safe.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers, Harry. Thanks, Josh. Take care.
Cheers, guys.